All right.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our session. My name is Suzanne Sharp, and I will be the moderator for today. I am currently the Executive Director for Enrollment Management Consulting with Liaison. I have worked in higher education for over 25 years. I feel really old. I work for Liaison now. I've been here about 6 years. I was a former VP of Enrollment Management and actually did partner with some of the Liaison tools to help with student recruitment. And ironically enough, this is not going to be all about me and Liaison, but I will say that ironically enough, I first got started in the world of admissions when I was a student at St. Cloud State and worked in the admissions office there as an intern. And so that was one of my earliest memories of the profession and learning that it existed. So I'm very, very pleased to be here today to help facilitate with Sean and Claudia. So Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you go ahead and introduce yourself and then pass it to Claudia.
Thanks, Suzanne. My name is Sean Pitzer. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions here at St. Cloud State. I've been in this role for about 2.5 years now, so still learning and still growing and lots of opportunities to do great work here at St. Cloud State.
Thank you. And my name is Claudia Tammany. I serve as the Associate Provost for Research and the Dean of Graduate Education here at St. Cloud State University. And with that, we can go to the next slide, Suzanne. So St. Cloud State University is a mid-size, regional, comprehensive master's granting institution. It has the Carnegie designation for community engagement, and it is part of a large system, the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities system, which serves over 230,000 students in over 30 institutions. 5 of them are state universities. So each of our sister institutions has sort of a different distinction or flavor to it. We are known for our programs in education, in health related professions, in public administration, and in STEM in support of medical and environmental issues. And with that, we can go to the next slide. You can see that about 1,700 of our students are graduate students. Graduate education has always been important to us, but plays a special role in our new strategic framework, which we call It's Time. It is the call of our president to define the new regional comprehensive university, a topic that has really reinvigorated the campus and brought a lot of new ideas and questions together. What we are trying to do, and all of it affects graduate education, is to achieve academic distinction in certain areas, to support a university of teacher scholars with faculty appointments that combine teaching and research, provide an individualized approach to student success, which is especially important for graduate students, and to prioritize access, diversity, equity, and inclusion to serve all the students who would benefit from a graduate degree. So you can imagine there's a lot of pressure then on the growth of the graduate programs, both in terms of quality and also in the number of students served. We are in a very competitive market. St. Cloud is about an hour northwest of the Twin Cities, which is a metropolitan area with over 3 million people. About 65% of jobs in that knowledge economy require a degree at the bachelor's level or higher. So there is a big market for education, but there's also a lot of competitors. The chief among them may be the University of Minnesota, which is one of our nation's premier research universities, and then also online competitors that operate nationwide. So our sort of task is a value proposition to say, why would you do your master's degree at St. Cloud State, and how can we serve best the students within sort of 100 miles of our vicinity here? So that's where GradCast and Liaison comes in. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sean.
Thank you, Claudia. So over the last couple of years, we have really done a great deal of soul searching and work to figure out how to work in this increasingly competitive environment, both home and abroad. And as we looked, we started really with evaluating our systems. and the processes that we had in place. And what we found was one of the first things that we felt was really lacking in the student experience and the faculty experience as well was the application system for admission. We were using an antiquated system, and so we felt like we had an opportunity to really open things up and find a better experience for ourselves and for our applicants. And so we wound up partnering with Liaison in the GradCast system, which has been a wonderful experience in implementation. So we signed on and we implemented the entire GradCast system over the course of approximately 5 weeks over a summer. It was a very fast and very aggressive effort, as Suzanne knows. So it was very quick and very well done. Within 6 weeks of implementation, we immediately noticed that our application volume had increased by about 19% point in cycle. And one of the reasons for that is really the idea of expanding recruitment. We've realized the days of waiting for graduate students to find us and to present themselves to us through an application are over. So we've taken a much more aggressive approach to leveraging partnerships and institutional resources to attracting high quality graduate students and also keeping our own undergraduate students in our graduate programs. So one of the things that was really exciting about Liaison, really engaging with a partnership. And when I say partnership, I really do mean that. And the main reason is that the implementation and logistics went very smoothly due to their expertise and their assistance in doing that. But also we were able to expand our recruitment reach based on the efforts that Liaison engages with to identify students to get into the CAS. And so Liaison's effort to get students into the CASs allows us to now present ourselves in an additional touch point for students. So really it comes down to more students drawn into the CAS, the more opportunities we have to present our programs to students that may not have identified our programs through our current marketing efforts. And so what we've also done is really looking down the road, we're further expanding that reach with the implementation of the enrollment marketing platform by Liaison, which we've spent this current summer implementing. And so I think, I use the word partnership a lot with Liaison, but it truly is because they're vested in our success, and we have a really great opportunity to think things through differently when it comes to graduate education.
Absolutely. I love the plug there. And when I was on the client side too, that was one of the reasons that I chose to come work for the company was because of that, that feeling of a partnership and not a traditional vendor-client relationship. And so I'm glad to hear that you're having the same thing. Always a pleasure. I want us to shift us now to, let's talk a little bit. It's been quite a year in 2020, and I'm sure everybody, for instance, we're all on this virtual conference right now and we're not in person as we were intentionally planning or initially planning to. So Sean, if you can talk a little bit about how has the pandemic really affected your international and national, how have the international and national issues affected graduate enrollment? I mean, it's great that, the GradCast implementation, I mean, despite the virus being up 19%, fantastic, but talk a little bit specifically more about how you're touching on the current issues and how it's affecting you.
Yeah, I don't think it's any secret that over the last 10 years, in particular, the international environment has really shifted. And certainly that's been accelerated recently, especially with the pandemic and just the access that students have to State Department resources overseas. The main thing, obviously with no travel, we can't get FaceTime. And I think we as recruiters and our program directors and our administrators, I think we all do best face-to-face when we can shake hands and we can look people in the eye and we can have a conversation. That's all been lost with the virtual events. And what we found, particularly related to things like graduate fairs that have moved virtual, is that oftentimes an institution like ours, we get lost in sort of the noise, we get lost in the crowd. And that's not because it's not reflective of our quality, it's just reflective of the fact that maybe we're a regional comprehensive institution, whereas someone that is Research One institution or is on one of the coasts has a little bit more national and global brand recognition. So we have to get creative and find ways and avenues of working with partners around the world in these virtual fair environments to identify prospective students any way possible. And then really, that says nothing of the challenge of actually accessing a visa or being granted a visa for an international student. But what we really want to focus on, I think, are the opportunities that have arisen out of these difficulties. One thing that we know is that there's a large population of international students that are already in country, whether they're on current student visas at other institutions or our own institution, or students that are here on work visas, or their spouses or significant others that are here on sponsored visas. So those are students that we don't have to worry about going to an embassy and getting a visa interview that's probably closed and canceling appointments. So that's really an opportunity. We already have a wealth of students here that could benefit from our education, that we need to get in front of them and tell our story. We also know that current undergraduate students are an incredible resource and incredibly fertile ground for good graduate students. At St. Cloud State, our graduate population, approximately 30% of them started here as an undergraduate. And so we've done a really good job over the years of keeping our students home for those second and third degrees at the graduate level. And then the other thing, I think, as we have implemented systems like the EMP system and the GradCast, we have really, we've changed our experience through the recruitment process. And so as a result, from the first half of the year to July 1, where we really started going live with these new systems, our daily inquiry pool quadrupled. And so we're driving interest. And so now it's really incumbent upon us to leverage our systems and utilize our skills to steward those leads. We know that a lead is worth nothing until you convert them to an enrollment. And so it's our job to really build the foundational tools and campaigns, whether it's phone calls or text messaging, email, postcards, all of those things, to really shepherd them and steward them through the entire recruitment process. And I'll give an example of one of our programs that has really benefited from the move over to GradCast and EMP. Our engineering management program is a program that's very well thought of. It's very well respected. It's one of 6 programs in the country that is accredited by the American Society of Engineering Managers. It has a global reach and extremely dedicated faculty. This is a program that has had to compete in the global environment as programs in Australia, UK, Germany, Japan have expanded their reach into our traditional recruiting grounds. We've had to come up with ways to compete. And so these efforts, combining the cast, number one, as well as with stewardship and yield campaigns, we've repositioned that program from really being almost an open enrollment type of program, that if we have a student that's willing to start with us in 2 weeks, we will accommodate that. We have gone in less than a year from that type of environment to turning people away essentially and saying, you can't start till next year because we don't have enough chairs. The fire marshal won't let you in our building, and things like that. So it's been really that's a good problem to have for a lot of programs. And I know it's extremely rare, and it's probably not the most common example, but the partnerships and systems and communication plans that we've put in place have actually reaped really positive benefits. And so we're, instead of still recruiting for that program for spring, we're really pushed out to next fall, and we're even starting to look beyond that point.
What a great feeling. That's congratulations, and especially in a very trying year. You mentioned a little bit about, you've been tossing around EMP, and I will just, for the audience, let people know that's the Enrollment Marketing Platform, which is a marketing platform and a CRM that Sean's team is using with the GradCast, which is the Graduate Centralized Application Service. But if we can shift a little bit to that EMP usage and talk about how the marketing strategies have evolved. How did you used to do it, and how are things being done now?
That's a great question. How we used to do it: word of mouth, number one, and number two, inconsistent and limited campaigns. It's really easy, especially in the graduate context, to work in flash in the pan type of advertising, sort of that guerrilla campaigning. What we need to do is take a much more longer term approach and a much more strategic approach in leveraging what recruitment dollars we're fortunate to have, and just do things smarter. And so one of the things that we've talked about for a long time is automation and integration. So what systems do we have in place, whether it's a CRM or an application or a student information system? How do we get all of those systems to work together? Because it's extremely rare that any one of those systems is designed to work with any other system. And so there's a lot of patchwork and technical work, whether it's your IT office or whether it's somebody that's in your own office that gets to manage through that. So that's the main thing, is getting that data shared between relevant systems so we can communicate proactively with people as they come through. And so that's really been the main thing. Aside from automation is personalization. I said earlier, the days of waiting for graduate students to come to us and those stealth applicants are really over. We can't rely on those. And so anytime we're able to get student information, it's our job to really make it a personalized experience. And so we try to do things like get communications out very quickly. They're very personalized. They have access to what's called a PURL, or a personalized URL, which is really a web page that we provide them through the enrollment marketing platform that says, okay, this is the program that you've indicated interest in. This is when you think you want to start. We're going to tailor that communication plan based on that exact information you gave us. Oh, and if you're an international student, you're going to get extra information related to the nuances of international enrollment. The other thing is that it's 24/7. So, depending on what your capabilities and systems are, you can make sure that the systems are exchanging data very frequently, 10, 12 times a day. So if a student is checking their status, in the morning, it may look different than it looks in the afternoon because your processing staff had a chance to work through that applicant's file. So it's very quick, it's very responsive. I think one of the things that I think that Dr. Tomini and I joke around a little bit with it is the idea of generational marketing. And when we were all in graduate school, the idea was you're an adult, you can figure all this stuff out on your own. I had to, my spouse had to, we all pretty much had to. But what we have to really be cognizant of is the fact that the generation that's coming up and aging into graduate school now is the generation that has had their hands held through elementary school, junior high, high school, and through their undergraduate experience. And that's good, it's valuable, it's beneficial. But we have to realize and remember that they expect that same experience through their graduate recruitment. And so it's responsiveness, it's being fast, first in. We all know the data that the first person I get a response from is the person that I'm most likely to respond to, whether it's an application or an enrollment. And so it's that speed, it's a 24/7 cycle, it's dealing with time zone issues with international students, and those types of things. And then I think one of the things that we've done is take a really aggressive approach at the institution. Dr. Tomini talked about the It's Time strategy. We have incredible momentum and support from the president's office and from our administration that graduate education is an extremely important part of our academic portfolio. And so what we've done is really work with our marketing wing to get a seat at that table. So everything that the institution is doing has an eye towards not just undergraduates and traditional age freshmen, for instance, but really focusing on the entire student experience and the stewardship that everything we do is not just related to an incoming freshman or more likely their parents, but having an idea and an eye towards introducing ourselves as a comprehensive institution that we can provide all of those needs in your career development. And then of course, leveraging those partnerships like Liaison and the CAS associations. Again, I can't stress enough that you can put as many names in your database as you want, but if you're not effectively leveraging that information and the tools you have to communicate with them, it's not going to be it's going to be less successful, we should say, and it's going to be a lot more hard and it's going to be a lot more manual work. You can kind of use the analogy of going fishing in the dark versus using an infrared camera and trying to find those fish. So it's really leverage the systems and tools and expertise that you have on campus.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing all that. And I know, just as a time check here, we've got about 10 minutes left, and a couple other points that we want to highlight. Reminder to those of you who are attending, I am watching. You see me looking over here. I'm watching the questions, so feel free to submit questions. If we're going to try to at least have a couple minutes at the end to address some of these questions as well. But until then, I get to ask a couple more questions of our panelists. So, and I think, Sean, you're going to start off on this one too, but talk a little bit about, what keeps students from submitting their applications at the graduate level, and maybe a little bit about how GradCast has helped with that submission process.
Yeah, I think I would pose a question to the audience, especially anybody that works in the graduate school or has any influence or input into the graduate recruitment and onboarding process. Do you know what percentage of your started applications are ever completed? Not just submitted, but completed. Do you require official documents? Do you require recommendations? All of these pieces of a graduate application that we require. Do you know what the barriers are to completion? So if we know that approximately 50% of our started applicants actually submit, what percentage of those actually are completed for us to be able to review and work with the faculty to render an admission decision? That's an important thing, because if you don't understand what those barriers to completion are, it's really hard to move the needle. So I think a couple of things that we can do that number one, Liaison consistently reaches out to anybody that has created a CAS ID, that they've created an account. So Liaison is working on their end to steward that student into the system to complete their application for us on our behalf. The other thing that we do institutionally and proactively on our end is monitor those in-progress applications and really reach out to those individuals to support and steward their completion. The other thing that we do is, one of the really nice things about being a member of GradCast is that we are able to have access to things like annual reports and understand sort of the market shifts. And so that data really helps us understand where we fit in that market, and to then really evaluate from a strategic perspective whether or not we need to adjust some of our expectations or our requirements through the admission process. I'm not talking about adjusting a GRE score minimum or a GPA minimum or things like that. I'm just thinking about the things that you actually require for an applicant to complete. And so if it's recommendations, do you require 3 recommendations? Are they letters or are they Likert evaluations? What percentage of your outstanding applicants actually just have 2 of the 3 recommendations that have been submitted, and you're just waiting on that last one, but it's a really good student otherwise? And do we want that last little thing to be the big barrier to potentially gathering that enrollment in? And so that's an opportunity to really think strategically about some of the things that you need to access and require through that process.
I mean, I think that is one of the biggest advantages, because, I mean, as the dean, you have to make a decision, how much labor are you going to put to this process, when students constantly call to see, is my application complete, or has this recommendation arrived? That eats up staff time, and those interactions are often somehow stressful or unfriendly even at times, whereas here it's actually a pull process. So we constantly ask the students, you still need this, you still need this. There are automated messages, but it's also really easy for them to look up. There's a checklist for what is still needed to complete the application. And so this drive to complete the application is so much easier and in a way more supportive and friendly in this system.
Excellent points. Excellent points. And I know we could talk on and on about so many things, but with limited time, let's move on to one of our last topics. And I understand that you sort of have rethought how you work with your academic programs to also boost the enrollment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done, pre-pandemic, when we were all still on campus, we really took the approach that we wanted to work with every graduate director in every academic program. So I guess maybe a little preview of our structure. We're a hybrid structure. And so our graduate admissions are centralized through the School of Graduate Studies, and then undergraduate admissions happens in a different unit on campus. But what our charge is to work with each of our 60+ graduate programs and directors to bring in the applications, ensure that they have met institutional standards, and then forward for faculty committee review, who then provide a recommendation back to us. What we did is we really wanted to get programs to have a deep understanding of what it takes to recruit students for their programs. And so we sat with them and provided about 10 years worth of enrollment data, both new student data as well as returning student data. So what we wanted to really get at was understanding those recruitment cycles and patterns. And so we could find some programs that really adjusted their recruitment strategies and their recruitment goals based upon how many students they were either graduating or retaining. Because they have, maybe it's for accreditation purposes, they can't have more than 25 students active in the program at any given time. The problem from a recruitment perspective is that our job is to grow enrollment and grow applications, but we need to make sure that we do it in a strategic way where we're putting them into programs that we can actually accommodate, because we don't want to run afoul of any type of policy or procedure or accreditation standards, whether they're program specific or agency specific. And so we really wanted to have an understanding and also get buy-in from the faculty that they understand what we're doing. And so we really wanted to identify what their position is in the market, whether they're a program that gets 2 students every other year, regardless of whether they advertise, or if it's the program that gets 200 applicants every year and has a 40% selection rate. So really having that buy-in from the faculty and then understanding how we get a seat at the table with the institutional marketing strategy. Again, sort of reiterating the support we have from our president's office and the administration team, specifically for grad, because it's easy for grad schools and graduate recruitment to be an afterthought. We've been very aggressive and have received that support to really have that opportunity.
Right, Sean, I think there are some questions as well.
Yes. And let's allow a couple minutes, and thank you all for getting on the horn here. So we've got about 2.5 probably minutes left, and several questions that have come in, and some of which I think we have answered since then as we've sort of been talking. And so one of the questions I think that we did not really hit on specifically that I want you to address is the grad program marketing done centrally, or is it at the program level? And I think it kind of relates to what you were just talking about, Sean.
Yeah, yes and yes.
Yes, yes.
So yes, we try to work together with programs. Not all programs have a marketing budget, and others do. And so we work with all of our programs to find out what those most efficient channels might be, and to also ensure that we're all collaborating, staying on brand, using the right colors, using the right fonts, those types of things, and also to make sure that we're not either contradicting or competing with each other in our advertisements and marketing efforts.
Right. I mean, I think to me, I look at it sort of like, rather than advertising every single little store, it's more like having a really beautiful mall of programs and then advertising that mall, so to speak, where people go and they check out the programs, and we provide that beautiful presentation that interests the students and that draws them in. So I think if you have limited monies as we do, then this is a really good investment.
Excellent. And let's get in one more question that, and it'll be a little bit selfish too, but talk a little bit about, did you look at other potential partners? Did you look at other vendors, and why did you choose Liaison?
Yeah, we looked at several partnership opportunities, and really what it came down to was our needs and limitations were directly addressed by the strengths that Liaison was able to offer. There are a lot of strong products and a lot of strong companies out there that may, but really for us in our instance, we really found a valuable partnership opportunity with Liaison to leverage the expertise that they have on their teams for things that maybe are gap areas that we don't necessarily have, or that just might not be able to get the attention that they, in our view, deserve and need. Because there are so many other initiatives. If you're undergoing a migration of your student information systems, things like that, a graduate admissions CRM is not going to take priority over the system of record. And so figuring out what your needs are, figuring out what organization best meets those, for us, that was Liaison, and it's been a great partnership.
Right. I mean, I can say I've worked at other institutions before where we introduced new systems, and One of the things that was really difficult was the tech support that was promised by salespeople wasn't there when in the implementation phase. So it took us over a year and like blood, toil, tears, and sweat to get to the point of making it work for us. And so this has been so markedly different because basically Sean implemented the system by himself in a few months with the help of a liaison. And so we've had the just excellent technical support for the not just the implementation but the migration from the previous system, and so to me that that means so much.
We love the kudos there, and we are hearing that you guys have another session at 4, so we are going a little bit over. I'm going to back up for just a minute and just make sure that everybody saw this slide. We just want to have a special invitation. If you would put this on your schedule for tomorrow morning, we're having a conversation with colleagues. Real nice. I think a whole lot different than what a lot of the virtual sessions have been. These are going to be small group meetings with small groups so everybody can participate. And so check your conference schedule, 10:45 to 11:45 tomorrow Eastern time. So.
And there's Susanna, if you could advance to because I wanted to invite the members of the audience on behalf of Sean and myself. We'd be happy to connect with you and answer questions or explain how the process worked for us or what takeaways we have from our own experience. So I wanted to offer that and also thank you for your time and for attending.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think it's time to wrap up. Give everybody a little bit of a breather, stand up and stretch before you get on your next virtual session. Claudia, Sean, thank you all so much. And congratulations on really making great strides despite challenging times. And thank you to everybody in the audience for joining us today, and have a great rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.